Brent Doherty, Don Davenport with you. Slay Dog has the call of Florida Atlantic and UAB tonight on ESPN2 at 6 o'clock. You want to talk some film evaluation of football players, Babsy?
Yes, I would like
Greg Cosell joins us now from NFL Films, among other things. Greg, what's up? How are you? Greg Cosell joins us now. Greg. This is where Slay would go. Yeah. Really? Oh, that's cool.
Hey, Cosell. I see you. Can't hear you. Zeph, is this your fault? Yep. Look at his smile.
I will say this. Zeph and Cosell have the almost same sweatshirt on. It's really weird. And Cosell's got an extreme close-up, which I appreciate. Hey,
Cosell, you hear us yet?
That's recording in progress.
Oh.
That almost sounded like you.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Dead on. Hi, Cosell. Can you hear us now?
I got you now. I saw you guys, but I didn't hear anybody. I could see your mouths moving, but I got you now.
Sorry, Zeph screwed it up, I'm sure.
I did.
Oh, you did? Wow.
Accountability.
Wow.
Look at this.
I can't wait to tell Slay about this.
I can hear you now. So we're good.
All right.
I forgot to join the audio. I just joined the video, so that's my fault.
That'll do it.
All right. Well, hey, that's okay.
Hey, Cosell, before we get into some linebackers, some NFL draft prospect linebackers, couple of guys are on the trading block. DK Metcalf has been given the opportunity to seek a trade. Where do you think he is? He's still a young guy. And still has some years on him for sure. He's only 27 years old, won't be 28 until December.
He is a big guy.
He's a big guy. He looks like a freak show and plays like a freak show. What did you see from him this year?
He's an interesting guy because he's 6'4"-ish, 230. He clearly can run. He's a vertical dimension. He's a little stiff, so he's not a great route runner, but he's certainly a weapon. I'm sure he feels that if he were to go somewhere else, he could, be in that category of catching 100 balls for 1,500 yards, which hasn't quite worked out in Seattle. I'm sure the way he believes that it should work out. For most teams, he'd be an upgrade. Certainly for a team like the Titans, he'd be a really good complement with a Calvin Ridley. I don't know what the market would bear. Usually it doesn't bear as much as many might think. I mean, we just saw today Christian Kirk get traded. Now, I'm not comparing Kirk and Metcalf. Clearly, Metcalf is a singularly better receiver than Kirk, and Kirk's missed 14, 15 games over the last couple of years. But Kirk got traded to the Houston Texans, as I'm sure you guys saw, for a 7th-round pick.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, players, we think, oh, my God, if you trade for him, you're going to have to give up a 1 or a 2. It doesn't usually work out that way. So, I'm not good with the trade value, so I don't know. But, the one thing about Metcalf, and this you can't teach, is he's big and he can run and he can get on top of defenses. And that always means something when opposing defensive coordinators have to game plan against you, because there's not one defensive coordinator in this league that wants to get beaten by 50, 60-yard touchdowns over the top, and he can do that.
So good compliment.
And any evidence of slowing down or anything in his film from last year?
No, I don't think he's slowing down. Like I said, he's probably not the most nuanced, subtle, refined route runner in the league, but that's okay. When I say it's okay, I mean it's technically not okay, but I mean he still has many, many other traits that are really, really good. And he's so big, and he's physical, and he can run. So he's he doesn't fall into that category of the top group in the league. He's not in the Jefferson, Chase, A.J. Brown category. But he's probably a notch below that. So he's, again, it would come down because he's still under contract, and I doubt they're going to, first of all, they don't have to trade him. He's under contract, and they're not going to release him outright. So ultimately, it would come down to a trade.
Greg Cosell with us from NFL Films. Trey Hendrickson, man, that dude, you want to talk about motor still going, 17 and a half sacks last year, 17 and a half the previous year. He's 30 years old. He wants out of Cincinnati. What do you see from him?
Another guy that has a year left on his contract, grossly underpaid based on the success that he's had at a position that's a premium position where people get paid a lot of money. So I understand his point of view 1,000%. Nothing suggested a year ago that he's slipping, even though he's 30. So again, they don't have to trade him. Who knows how that plays out? I doubt he's going to sit out a season if he's not traded. He's 30 years old. But he's a really good edge pass rusher. Normally plays on the right side of your defensive line. That's where he does all his work. You know, he's exactly, in a sense, when you watch tape of, let's say, college players and you think, okay, how can they succeed in the NFL? And the first thing you look for is, can they win with power? And he wins with power. And that's where you start, because offensive linemen will tell you, particularly offensive tackles, obviously, those are the players he's going against, will tell you that if a guy can beat you with power, it changes the whole dynamic. You know, the guys that can only win with their speed and their dance moves, those guys are easier to block for offensive tackles than the guys that can get right in their chest and beat them with power.
So how would he fit in with the big pieces that the Titans have defensively?
Well, he would fit in anywhere because he's a terrific edge pass rusher.
Right.
So if you're playing a 4-man D line, which they're playing, then, you know, he fits. So, you know, I think that he's one of those guys that could pretty much fit anywhere. And he's just a really good player. And he's a tempo setter. He's tough. He's physical. You know, he plays with an edge to him. You know, he's just a really good player that maybe not a lot of people know about and think about, because they think about the Myles Garretts, the TJ Watts, and deservedly so. Those guys are obviously great players. But Hendrickson, like you said, Brand, you said 17 plus sacks in each of the last 2 years. That's hard to do.
I mean, I have no problem spending other people's money, so I would love to see him next to Big Jeff and T'Vondre Sweat. I think that would be a really good defensive line.
Well, yeah, again, we'll see, because he is under contract.
Yeah.
You probably saw that Sam Hubbard retired. So, you know, my guess is they're not going to be anxious to trade him unless they feel they're really getting something meaningful in return. And those are the things I don't know. I just don't know about the trade charts and the trade values. And he is 30 years old. Right. So, you know, they don't want to trade him for a 6th-round pick. And I don't know if that's the way it would work. Maybe you get a 2nd-round pick. I don't know. But there's no way the Bengals are going to let him go for you know, a 5th or 6th-round pick, unless it gets really nasty.
Maybe a player. We'll trade for a player.
I guess that could be the case. You normally don't see that, Dawn, but I mean, it's happened before.
I mean,
what about like a Harold Landry and something else?
They're two completely.
It would have to be more than just Harold Landry.
I know, I said something else. But maybe that could make the something else a little bit smaller.
Then one of those draft picks you're talking about.
Right.
Cosell. Today, Cameron Wolf put out that there are 2 teams leading for Javon Holland, who's a safety in Miami. He said Panthers and Titans are among the teams in the mix and that they are the top 2 teams. Help me with Javon Holland, because admittedly, I didn't watch the Dolphins safety. Like,
why not? Come on,
every snap.
Brent, why not? I expected you did a full study of every snap of Javon Holland's career.
But then I see the production: 62 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, no interceptions, and the money they're talking about is like 15 to 20 million for him. What did the tape show of Javon Holland?
He's a really good player. He's what we call a 5-tool safety. He can play in the box. He can play in the slot. He can play single high. He can play shell coverage. There's only about 4 or 5 5-tool safeties in the league. Probably the 2 best 5-tool safeties in the league are Holland and Minkah Fitzpatrick. So Holland is a great, great player, and he's got a lot of experience in multiple defensive schemes. Probably 3 or 4 in his short career. He's played in a Vic Fangio scheme in 2023, played in a different scheme this year. He's a really, really good football player. You know, again, I don't know what the money is for the top safeties in the league. I don't get into that. But, you know, he's just a really, really good player.
What did you think about Amani Hooker's play last year?
And he missed some time, did he not?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Amani Hooker. I think, to me, Amani Hooker is in many ways very much like a lot of the safeties who come out of Iowa. They're not the best athletes at the position, but they know how to play. There's a savviness and awareness to their game. But they're not great athletes. So they're just smart, aware players. And I think that's what Hooker is. So if you want to keep him as a starter, and I think he is a quality NFL starter when healthy, you would really like to have a more physical, better athlete with him. And Holland certainly fits that because he can do anything. But I think Hooker, when healthy, is a very, very solid player.
Yeah, and it goes way beyond stats. Obviously, we learned that when we initially started talking with you several years ago. But, he missed 3 games. Still had 5 interceptions from his safety position.
My guess is, and I don't know him, and I'm certainly not, there every day, but my guess is he's just one of those guys that gets it and knows how to play.
Greg Cosell with us from NFL Films. All right, you and I talked today. It was Zeph's idea to maybe roll through some linebackers because certainly the Titans are in need at the inside linebacker position, at least depth-wise. They have 2 young players that they worked into those roles last year. But Jihad Campbell from Alabama, 6'3", 235 is the list there. Have you seen him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's the most fascinating guy of all the so-called stacked backers in this draft because he's a little bit of an athletic freak. Now, because he went to Alabama, you got to remember, he went to Alabama as an edge pass rusher. And they happened to have Dallas Turner and Will Anderson when he got there, so they made him a stacked backer. But he still rushes the quarterback, and he did that quite a bit this year, both from the second level and from the first level as an edge. He's a very good pass rusher. But because, guys, he's never, until he got to college, he was not really a stacked backer. He doesn't necessarily play with a ton of physicality, but you're dealing with a freakish athlete. So, again, he's a young guy, and he's sudden, he's twitchy, he's got a ton of range. You have to decide, can he be tougher in the box? And you have to decide on that. But you're dealing with a guy that is really a sudden athlete. I mean, he's a guy you just watch him and you can just see it immediately. And he's, 6'3", he's got tremendous length, so he's long. He's kind of an interesting watch because, like I said, he's not necessarily physical. I'm sure you guys, when you talk to Coach Mack, you hear him talk about stack and shed all the time. Mm-hmm. That's not Campbell's game right now, but he's capable of that because he's basically capable of anything athletically. But he's kind of freakish just as an athlete.
So he's kind of intriguing to you to see kind of how he's utilized.
Yeah, and he'll be a high pick because this is not a phenomenal draft overall. So just the athletic traits are really, really high. And he's going to, he's going to be taken. My guess is, you never know, it's not a big quarterback draft. It's not a big wide receiver draft. So you're going to get a lot of other players that get taken. It would not surprise me at all if he goes in the top 15.
Wow. Greg Cosell with us. Here's a guy that Coach Mack said he wanted to see at the Combine, but he didn't work out, so he's intrigued by UCLA linebacker Carson Schlesinger. Have you seen him?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about him?
He is, when I watched him, who I came away with? Thinking, I thought he was a lot like Drew Tranquill. Kind of loose, fluid athletes, easy movement, lateral agility, change of direction, kind of fit the profile of the run and chase, play fast, stack backer. They can cover ground both vertically and horizontally. He's really good in pass coverage, has a great understanding of routes. You can see his head's always on a swivel when he's an underneath zone defender. He's just not, he just needs more play strength. He's not a power player. But he's a fun watch because this guy, he can run. He's all over the field. He's so good. He beats blocks. He beats climbing offensive linemen in the run game with play recognition and a quick trigger. So he doesn't get blocked a lot because his key and diagnose, that's a term we use a lot. His key and diagnose is so good, and then his trigger is so quick that he can beat blocks that way. So he's a really fun watch. He's just not a strong physical player. I should say a power player. He's actually, there's a difference between physical and powerful. He's physical, he's just not powerful.
Yeah, and these guys aren't necessarily first-round type guys, but certainly curious about.
To me, and again, this draft is crazy, so I'm not good at, that's why I don't do mock drafts. That's not the best use of my time. I just love grinding away watching tape of guys. But I would say that in a normal draft, I don't think Schlesinger would be anywhere near a first-round pick, but he has a chance to be a good pro player.
I know Zeph, who produces our show, loves Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma. Have you checked him out?
Yeah, Danny Stutzman, he's an interesting guy, too. He's big. He's played a ton of college football. I mean, he's one of those guys. I don't know how many, starts he has, but he's played a ton of college football. He's highly, highly productive. He's got great size, great length. He basically never left the field. Another guy that at times shows a really quick trigger. I would say that he's not really a naturally quick and sudden athlete. So he's one of those guys you have to decide what can he truly transition to the league, and be a good player, because there's not a lot of athleticism to him that you'd like to see. It's not that he's non-athletic, but he's a high-level producer in college, but his athletic and overall physical traits don't, to me, necessarily translate to developing into a higher level quality starting linebacker at the NFL level. Now, I could be wrong, but that's the way I see him on tape. But he's a guy that's been super productive at the college level.
Yeah, he started 37 of 47 games in his college career.
Yeah, so he's played a lot of football.
Durable.
He's kind of a measured, methodical mover. He's not a high-level athlete for the position.
Yeah, it sounds like you're describing Gibbons on the Titans.
But you know what? That's not a terrible comparison, by the way. That's not.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
Oh,
and guys like that, you can play with them, but you'd like to be better.
Yes. They're great backups.
Look, as people know, none of this is personal, but I mean, you'd like to be better, but you can line up with those guys. You just would like to be better.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat said, Greg, how deep is this draft at offensive line? A few names Titans fans should know. Originally coming into this draft, I thought it was pretty deep at that position. But
well, you got any names for me, Dawn? I mean, it's pretty, there's always offensive linemen, and a lot of the guys who were drafted in the 4th, 5th round end up being good NFL players.
I've got one for you.
Go ahead.
I've got one for you. Missouri offensive tackle Armand Membu.
Yeah, his name's being tossed around a lot.
At 332, he ran a 4.91 40. And this is the question you said you wanted to see going into the combine, how long guys' arms are. And his are 33 and a half. So is that tackle length?
Yeah, you can play tackle at that, although this was a very odd draft, Brent, in that a lot of the tackles just did not have long arms, which is very, very surprising. I mean, think about Will Campbell, whose tape is tremendous, and yet his arm length was, I think, 32 and 5/8. And I can tell you right now that there are going to be offensive line coaches in this league who think that removes him as a tackle prospect. As good as he was as a 3-year starter in the SEC, there will be offensive line coaches who will say to their personnel directors and head coaches that this guy is not an offensive tackle in the NFL. But anyway, getting back to Membo, he's got a dense, powerful build. He's got natural strength and power. He's got heavy hands. He really executed fundamentally at a high level. I think he can play tackle for sure. Some might see him as a guard, but his tape's good. I mean, another SEC guy, so he's got a lot of experience against a lot of good players. He has that one particular move that's really, really hard to do that Lane Johnson has mastered, which I've seen on tape with Membo. It's called the double under move. And people can look that up if they want, but it's a really hard pass protection move to execute, and I've seen Membo do it.
Somebody else, just real quick on the way out, I saw this guy a bunch this year with West Virginia, and that's Wyatt Milam.
Yeah, he's going to be a guard.
Yep.
He's
even though he played left tackle his whole time there, right?
Yeah, I like his tape a lot, Dawn. I think that he can be a quality guard, but he's a guard. And he's had a great college career. Another guy, he was was he like a 3 or 4 year starter there? I can't remember, but he started for a long time.
And had consecutive games that he started too. He was never injured.
Yeah, so I mean, he's one of those guys that I could be dead wrong, but I think if you line him up at guard, he'll play 10 years in the league, and I think he could be a higher level guard prospect, but he's not going to be a high. And by the way, his arm length was 32 and 5/8 as well. So there's no question he's going to be seen as a guard prospect and not a tackle prospect.
Another guy you were waiting to see arm length was Kelvin Banks Jr. What'd you learn at the combine from him?
Yeah, let me pull him up and see.
He's out of Texas for those that don't remember.
No, I know who he is. Obviously,
no. I'm talking to our listeners, Greg. I know I'm not going to educate you on anything. So right. Anyway, we had him on SEC Media Days, and just a delightful human being and a really massive guy.
Yeah. Now his arm length was 33 and a half, which is okay. He's a really good athlete, Where he struggles at times as a run blocker, he tends to fall off blocks at times in the run game. But you're dealing with a really good athlete. I think his tape though was a little up and down, but I think it's in his body to be a good player. But I think his tape is a little up and down. And he played a lot of football, got hurt a little bit this year. But he did come back, I think, late in the season. He's one of those guys, again, in this draft, it's tough to know where he'll go. I think it's there, if he's coached and can be developed. But there are some concerns when you watch his tape. But like I said, it's there. It's within him to become a good player. You just never know.
Join 104.5 The Zone for a live taping of The Install with Greg Cosell, hosted by Buck Rising at the Analog at Hutton Hotel on Friday, May 2nd. Be there live as Greg Cosell breaks down the Tennessee Titans 2025 draft, takes questions from the audience and more. Tickets on sale now. To purchase tickets, visit 1045thezone.com. That's going to be a fun event. Always is.
Well, I'm looking forward. And by the way, guys, next week we'll be able to talk about free agency. We'll see what the Titans do because I guess the unofficial is March 10th, which is 4 days, and there's going to be stuff announced even before the official March 12th. So next week, hopefully, we'll be talking about some new Titans.
Yeah, and I think they were smart and good on getting both of the quarterbacks, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, in there this week to kind of get more of an evaluation of those two guys.
I think Abdul's here today.
I don't know what you guys think. You're there. I'm not. Obviously, you're not in the building and you're not in their meetings. Just like I don't have any inside information. But the more I think about it, the more I think that they are going to try to trade out and get players, and because they just need players. And that's I could be wrong, but that's what I think is going to happen.
That's literally what Buck told us when he came back from the combine. Just from talking to people there, that's the sense he got as well. But smart to get more of an evaluation from each of those guys, spending more than a day with each of them before free agency hits, and then
we can certainly, as we keep going forward, return to my evaluations of both guys and other quarterbacks as well. Because who knows? Maybe they make a trade and get players, and they decide to draft a quarterback in the second round. You never know.
Yeah, and then Dawn gets Jackson Dart here, which she would love.
Stop it.
I'm not
a Jackson Dart fan.
Are you a big Jackson Dart fan, Dawn?
Yeah, negative.
Negative.
Are you?
Well, big fan is a relative term, but he intrigues me.
He can throw the deep ball, Cosell.
He has issues recognizing and reading a defense and getting off his first read.
To some degree, but I think a lot of quarterbacks are like that in college because the college game is totally different, and with the difference in the hash marks and the field being more spread out, there's less of that's demanded of quarterbacks than there is at the NFL level. So I think that's a pretty common thing. And again, I'm not here to defend Jackson Dart, but on a certain level, he does intrigue me. He's one of those quarterbacks I keep going back and forth on, Dawn. Sometimes I think, man, he could be a quality starter, and other times I don't. And I just, I guess it depends on what day of the week it is.
And what game you watch of him.
That's where I am.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I've seen... Because I watched them last summer, too. I've probably seen 20 games.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get more in depth on Dawn's favorite draft
I want
crush.
Cam Ward, period.
Yeah, she wants Cam Ward.
Well, next week, Dawn, I want you to tell me the quarterbacks you like.
Okay.
Well, that's the one.
All right? That's your homework assignment.
Okay, it's a very short list.
I figured it would be, but you can tell me next week.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Cosell. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
At Greg Cosell from NFL Films. We got to get out of here. 3-8-1-0-4-5 this home.